On the line with us is Mikey Weinstein. Mikey has been just doing this extraordinary work for many years. He's been on the program many times. It's been a while, though. He's the founder and president of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. MilitaryReligiousFreedom.org is their website. His Twitter handle is Mikey, M-I-K-E-Y, Weinstein, W-E-I-N-S-T-E-I-N. Mikey, welcome back to the program. Can you give us I've been ranting this morning about, what happens when the white nationalists, the hardcore neo-fascists and the far-right Christians get together. You've been documenting their infiltration of our military. What's the latest?
Well, first, Tom, I want to thank you for being here and being the voice, oftentimes, sadly, in the wilderness for so many years. And it has been a while since I've been on. I know we've done the show before, but thank you for the opportunity. I just did an interview with Paul Jay at the Analysis outlet last week, which went everywhere, about this specific thing about the merging of what we call fundamentalist Christian nationalism, which of course includes white supremacy, into what we refer to as the technologically most lethal organization ever created by Homo sapiens, which is our U.S. military. It's always been bad. But during Trump, it was just like somebody handing out cocktails of cancer, metastasizing it as fast as you possibly could. I often refer, Tom, I'm sure, of course, you of all people know the most famous speech by President Eisenhower was his farewell speech, where he warned America and the world about what, Tom?
The military-industrial complex, originally the military-industrial congressional complex in his first draft.
Exactly. They cut out the congressional part right at the end before he said it. But what we fight here at MRFF is nothing less than a fundamentalist Christian parachurch military corporate congressional proselytizing complex. And this concept of Christian nationalism, Christian nationalists are people that hate democracy and want to create a fundamentalist Christian theocracy in its place. They hate our freedoms. It includes massive misogyny. These are the component parts of this: Islamophobia, homophobia, anti-Semitism, and a real hatred of our Constitution, which they want to subordinate to their weaponized version of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And it is just so bad. And as I said on the Paul Jay show, if you keep in mind, I think it was something like 7.9% Hitler had actually hardcore people in his National Socialist movement. Stalin had something like 2.8% in Russia. It's our best sense here at the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, for fighting this for the majority of 20 years, that we have somewhere between 28 to 34% of the people in the U.S. military, Tom, who would be classified or could easily be classified as Christian nationalists. That's terrifying when you realize this is where all the nuclear weapons are, the drones, the chemical weapons, the laser-guided weapons. We are probably later this week, we will go over, get this, Tom, 75,000 sailors, soldiers, Marines, and airmen, guardians at the Space Force, Coast Guard, Marines, cadets and midshipmen at the military academies, my alma mater, the Air Force Academy, West Point, Annapolis, and even junior ROTC, OTS, and OCS. And about 95% of our clients are actually Christians themselves that are being persecuted for not being Christian enough. So this is not, as they would say in Apollo 13, Houston, we have a problem. This is very much, Tom, this is Houston, we have a national security threat internally as much as we're facing externally by a resurgent Taliban, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, the Mujahideen, and Boko Haram, you name it. But it's right inside of our own military. And it was the Trump-inspired people who are still very much inextricably intertwined into what we call the Pentecostal gun that we are fighting on a daily basis. And that's why I'm so happy to be on with you today, because most people do not know what Christian nationalism is. It's bad enough, Tom, as you know, you've spoken about it when you see it in legislatures or with sewage workers or firefighters or the police or even in public schools. But when you mix it in with the firepower of our U.S. military, it is nothing less than what I said, a terrifying, harrowing national security threat, Tom.
The histories of the Trump era are coming out right now, and one of them pretty much deifies General Milley as the guy who, the military stood against Trump. Trump wanted to use the military. He wanted to, execute a coup or a state of emergency using the military, and they defied him. Is that the exception to the rule? Is the senior brass, are they the ones who are, I mean, is there any effort on their part to hold back this tide from within their own ranks?
You know, there was a movie you and I saw called 7 Days in May that came out probably in the early 60s or late 50s about a coup in the American military. I think Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas were in it. Mm-hmm. I would like to be able to, I think that Milley is probably a good person, but there should have been a more full-throated response to this Reichstag moment, which was talked about. We talked about that on the Paul J. Show. I would have liked to have seen that. I don't want to upset the senior flag officers, admirals and generals who come to us on almost a daily basis, and the senior executive service members of the civilian DoD Corps, which are at the same level. But it is not. This may surprise you, but probably won't, Tom. We get calls constantly from senior military leaders asking us to intervene in their own organizations because they know that we'll do it with protecting anyone who's calling in for anonymity. And they don't have to, turn into what we call tarantulas on wedding cakes and face horrible, revenge, and retaliation. What bothers me is, MRFF, we are not a line item in the DoD budget, and these people should be standing up. I believe that General Milley and others, again, it should have been a more full-throated response than what we saw. We cannot have our military infected with careerism. There comes a time when doing the right thing means you have to do something objectively. And as Martin Luther King said, at the end of the day, it is not the words of our enemies that we remember, but the silence of our friends, and silence becomes complicity. I don't want to be mean or terribly pejorative to these individuals, but stand the F up. You're in the military. I'm not saying if you're a manager at Boeing or at Costco, but in this case, it's the United States military, and you see what the commander-in-chief is doing or trying to do. Stand the F up and forget about your own career, trajectory. In the case of Milley, he's already the most senior military person there. One of our advisory board members, one of my closest friends, is Larry Wilkerson, and he was the right-hand person to Colin Powell when he was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Milley's job, and when Colin Powell was the Secretary of State. And, I realize Christian nationalism is terrifying. It's everywhere. In fact, they just kicked Paul J's link off of YouTube this morning, saying that we were passing information that the 2020 election was a fraud, when in fact it was the largest and most secure election in American history. So we're going to be fighting that. And Tom, I hope they don't ever do that to the Thom Hartmann show.
Yeah, me too. But
they better not.
Well, I'm not saying the election was a fraud, never have. But it seems to me that the most dangerous combination imaginable is this combination of military power and religious power. I was ranting about this in the first part of this hour, where talking about the Crusades, where the Pope, told people, and the papacy continued with this for a couple of hundred years, that if you die in battle, you immediately go to heaven. This was bin Laden's message to his followers, which is why they were willing to crash planes into buildings. This is the message that ISIS and Boko Haram embrace, and Al Qaeda embrace, and it's why their fighters are so difficult to defeat, frankly, because they're not afraid of dying. And I am hopeful that, and now, Ross Story is reporting, and just this morning, just like an hour ago, it just went up, that the son of Reverend Moon is now talking about there's a good way to die, right? Fighting for fascism, fighting against the American way. And are you seeing evidence of this? I mean, that's the most extreme on the merger of religion and military that is conceivable. And every culture in the history of the world that has embraced this idea that if you die killing people, you immediately go to heaven, has flipped from being a civilized culture into a barbarous culture. It's why we call the Dark Ages the Dark Ages. Are you seeing evidence of that kind of thing starting to infiltrate our military?
Not starting. It's been there for a long time. I invite your audience to Google the terms Jesus nukes, as in nuclear weapons, and Jesus rifles, two of our largest stories. I can tell you that the people that we are fighting are trying to use our U.S. military as an accelerant or lubricant to, again, bring their version of weaponized Jesus back. And a lot of them are promised. They talk about it. A 200-mile-long river, 4.5 feet deep, filled with nothing but the blood of those that their version of Jesus is slaughtered at the Battle of Armageddon. And my fear, I've said it for years, is that they're going to try to spark a nuclear incident to accelerate the arrival of their version of Jesus. I know how it sounds, But as I said before, when we took a look at January 6th, it was suddenly as if we at MRFF, Thom, had been suddenly discovered. We've been talking and screaming about this for years. I had so many media people calling me saying, why are we seeing so much military up there? Why are we seeing all the Christian iconography? So that's exactly what we're concerned about, except just to slightly put a different theme on your statement. This isn't sudden. This has been going on really since the early 1990s, and it existed under Bush and Obama, under Clinton, and it just has gone completely crazy under Trump. And we are not seeing the type of ardent opposition that we would like to see from Biden or from General Milley or even from Lloyd Austin. Austin said, I want to be the lodestar for religious and racial diversity in DOD. Secretary Austin, show us. Words are cheap. You got to stand up and do it now. I don't know what more we can do.
Yeah, amen. We're talking with Mikey Weinstein, the founder and president of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, MRFF. The website is militaryreligiousfreedom.org. On Twitter, Mikey Weinstein. Mikey, we're going to hit a break here in just a second. You want to tell people just a little bit about your organization and where they can find you and how they can reach out to you if they have friends, family in the military that they're concerned about?
Absolutely. We provide our clients AARP, anonymity, action, results of protection. We don't charge anything. militaryreligiousfreedom.org, or my phone number, which is public, 505-250-7727. We also have a toll-free number. We represent, like I said, this week we'll hit 75,000 members of the military. We have over 650 people that work here, paid and volunteers. We've been doing this, fighting this fight since Mel Gibson came out with his wonderful movie, The Passion of the Christ, in February of 2004, or as we call it, the Jesus Chainsaw Massacre, or Freddy versus Jesus. We've been incorporated as a 501c3 nonprofit since December of 2005. So we are here to help everybody. You can be completely anonymous, and if you want to help us, you can go to our website, militaryreligiousfreedom.org. Thank you, Thom.
militaryreligiousfreedom.org. Mikey, let's stay in touch and talk more frequently. Thanks so much for dropping by.